Hello, I'm Jim Sneary. I'm a participating artist here at the Art Center and Gallery of Estes Park. And today what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of an introduction as to some of the equipment, the tools, some of the materials that go into basic power carving. So I've got a lot of things to try to show you. Hopefully it'll give you a little bit of insight as to all of the things that need to go into the various types of carving. Start with what some of the woods are. Typically, I'll either use basswood or tupelo. Basswood is popular among carvers who carve fish or smoothie birds. They're nice to use, easy to carve. But they tend to fuzz a little bit when you use power tools. Fuzz meaning there's a little fuzz from the carving of the wood that is hard to sand off without losing the detail. So I prefer to use tupelo for most of my birds and most of my carving. It's a relatively soft wood. It's not like harder things like maple or oak or something like that. It's got nice grain, good texture for carving, so I get some nice surfaces and can get good detail in the pieces. Lots of times you can buy blocks of wood from the wood shops, or in some cases, if you take a class, the instructor might provide you with a pre-cut piece that already has some basic shape for carving a bird. So you can see this one is fairly wide. This is one for an American tree sparrow. And obviously the tail's not going to be that wide, but it's a really excellent way to get started taking a class and getting some samples from the instructor. I like to carve a variety of things. So I have birds, I have blocks, I have figures, various types of things. Patterns, most of the patterns I make myself. You can buy patterns again at some of the carving stores. If you take some classes, the instructor may provide you with a pattern that you can use over and over again. The tree sparrow one, when that one is all carved, this is the way the bird looks. So you've got nice detail and everything out of the tupelo wood. And as a lot of people like to say, well, how do you know what to carve? Well, you just carve away the parts you don't want. That's easier said than done. I'm not too good at two-dimensional art, but for some reason I have some feel for the three-dimensional aspects. So that helps a lot if you've got that type of a background ability to look at some of the art things. Now I said I was a power carver, so there are carvers who use just a carving knife, and that's great for doing fish and some pieces that don't have a lot of real fine detail, like three-dimensional feathering. So on a smoothie piece, you'll carve the same shape of the piece, but then what you'll do is you'll paint in the detail. So for me, I use a power carver. It's like a Dremel, or it's kind of a cross between a Dremel and a dental tool. Now the nice thing about this one that is not a Dremel is that the motor is in the hand-held piece, whereas in a Dremel, I would have the main motor over here, and I'd have a thick, heavy, flexible shaft instead of this lightweight power cord. And what that does, part of what it does, is it cuts down on the vibration, so I can get better detail without the vibration causing wide lines. It's a very small motor, obviously, and when it's running, like I said, there's very little vibration, very little noise, and very little tension because of this light wire. So I've got this thing running right now at about 24,000 RPM, and I can handle this like a pen. And so this is my main tool. If you're starting out in carving, I'd recommend you probably start with a Dremel, primarily because you don't want to make the investment into this type of tool, which is very expensive relative to the Dremel. Like a Dremel, you can put in different size bits and everything. So I've got bits that go from 1 millimeter. You won't be able to see this, even if I put it up behind something white, but that's about 1 millimeter across the tip on that bit. And then I've got some that are this size that are rough enough to probably work pretty good on concrete. And they'll take a good chunk of skin out of you too if you're not careful. As you can see over here, I'll put this out in front, I've got quite a few different bits in terms of what I use for different types of things. There are flames, there are tapers, there are balls, there are saw-like discs. There's all types of things for different little aspects. Again, to start out, you want a few basic bits and burrs. I use probably a dozen out of this 100 and some bits that I've got. They do wear out if you work on hardwood, like if you work on mahogany or walnut or something like that, you can wear out a bit pretty quickly. One of the things in the show is a ball in a box. So that's what this is. This is carved out of one piece of wood. There's 4 blocks. All of the blocks have balls inside of them. And then there's 3 balls that are just hollowed out with a whole series of holes in them. But this is carved from one piece of wood. People are always interested in how that's done. So you start out with just a flat block, draw some circles on the side, come in with your different types of drill bits or burrs, and you start working around the edge. And you carve a circle, and then you start going down the side like the tangent to a sphere and work into the various corners. Now, if you want to have a nice looking ball, what you want to do is before you disconnect the ball from the box, you go in and you hand sand for a day or so, whatever, depending on how smooth you want the ball to be. But with the power carving, I can do a lot of details. So I've got something like this, doesn't look like much, maybe a star or a petal flower. What this is 2 parts to a columbine flower. So these are the big petals. This is the center part. And what I want to do is I want to make a columbine out of that. And when it's all said and done, you end up with a flower like this. So you've got the center part, or the white petals, which is the round piece. The bottom petals is the bigger piece. And then I've made these out of these little tails out of wood, and they're just super fragile. So now I've changed and I make them out of metal and epoxy. But the idea behind that is to carve your hummingbird. Again, this is something you can do with the power tools, but not very easily with a knife. And then you insert very easily, wrong glasses. You insert the hummingbird into the flower, and then you mount a stem onto the flower. So these are the key components, tools for use in doing power carving. You've got a control unit, a good handheld source, various utensils for sanding. I really like these sanding sticks. They're great for getting surfaces smooth and flat. A few tools I'd start out with, and start out with some basic things that you like to do yourself. Carve those, do a couple of those before you expand out into other areas. This is a cedar waxwing that I've carved. And one of the things that adds nice detail to a piece is to add some of the habitat type material. So this habitat is a branch that's made out of brass and epoxy. And then just some carved wood and some copper wire to mount some berries on there so that you can give the bird a little bit more of a background to be seen in. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea as to what some of the tools or techniques are. It's a real short demo, but just wanted to give you that kind of an introduction. So enjoy. Hope to see you at the gallery. Thank you.